What is up, everyone? Welcome back for episode 3 of Select Your Character. This is the brand new show on the channel where I'm talking all things Street Fighter and fighting game 1/12 action figure related. So not just Street Fighter, we're covering all things fighting game and fighting game adjacent, and we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be covering Storm Arena at Hong Kong Comic-Con. We're going to be talking about where the heck are the pre-orders. We've been waiting on some pre-orders and some pre-order fulfillments from Storm Arena and Jada, so we're going to be touching on that. We're going to be talking about 52 Toys and their brand new Final Fight series that just went up for pre-order. And then we're going to be looking at some third-party stuff as well. So we have a lot to get into today, so let's go ahead and jump into it. First off, we are looking at the display from Storm Arena, who partnered with Anime Pro, retailer out there in Hong Kong for the first ever Hong Kong Comic-Con. We weren't sure how big of a display there was going to be. We weren't sure if we were going to see new reveals or anything like that. So let's go ahead and take a look here at what we've seen so far out of the Hong Kong Comic-Con. And shout out to Toys TV HK. They did a full walkthrough of the con. So of course we sat there for an hour or so and watched them check out all the really cool toys on display there, just waiting to see a glimpse of what Storm has brought to the con. Now they have a couple little displays here, this first one being their Street Fighter display, which we see the brand new exclusives for Dan and Charlie. Those are looking really good. The orange on that Dan is looking a lot more vibrant and like a deeper orange than I was seeing out of the earlier images, so that's exciting to see, looking good. The Charlie, of course, looking really cool in that white and navy blue colorway. But then the rest of the display is looking a little sparse. We're seeing Ryu and Ken, sort of the flagship characters for the Storm Arena Street Fighter line. We're seeing the Sagat looking cool, no effect piece or anything, just kind of floating there on his own. And then we're seeing what I believe to still be a prototype of the Akuma. Now, this is all we're seeing from the Street Fighter line out of Storm Arena. One thing you might be saying or seeing is, where's Chun-Li, right? Chun-Li was actually up for pre-order before Akuma. We've been seeing her prototype. We've been seeing them update her prototype, and she was actually set to be released in Q3, which is coming up here in a month. But we are not even seeing her on display here at the Hong Kong Comic-Con. We are seeing Akuma, who was set to release in Q4 of this year, here on display. So that might be a little bit concerning as to some of the releases coming up out of Storm Arena. As I've mentioned before, I'm thinking that we might not even see Chun-Li release this year, and this is kind of leaning towards that, as I think we would have seen her here on display if she was close or ready to be released, which, again, she's supposed to be released in Q3, which is the next 4 months. We're approaching ever so closer to Q3 here, and it's kind of concerning to not see her here on display, but to see Akuma here. Now, could they maybe swap the release dates of these? We have been seeing like in-hand previews from Mr. Lee on this Akuma, which we haven't even seen for Chun-Li. So do they maybe push Akuma up and release him in Q3? That could be a possibility, but I'm not going to hold my breath there. He's still scheduled to release in Q4, so hopefully we see that happen here in the coming months. But here's their display for their Street Fighter line. We have a couple other displays. We're going to jump over to the next one here in just a sec. But I did want to touch on this Charlie. One thing we're seeing here in this preview is pay attention to those glasses. In the preview shots, we were thinking the glasses were maybe like a little bit different. They looked dark tinted, like they were sunglasses, which would have been really cool to get for the Player 2 Charlies, but it looks like that was maybe just a weird photography thing where they were looking darker, because here we're seeing they are clear, they are the same glasses that we got with the Player 1 Charlie. But yeah, still nice display. I'm really liking the orange on that Dan, as I said. Dan's looking really good. I do have these ordered from a proxy buyer in Hong Kong who, depending on how many he can get his hands on, hopefully we'll be getting these figures here in hand and a full review and look at these two new exclusives for Dan and Charlie in the next few weeks coming here as these start to sort of roll out. But if you are there at the convention, you can grab one. The guys from this channel were showing off that they did purchase this Dan there at the booth, but I imagine that there's a pretty decent demand for these. I did want to mention this is the first Hong Kong Comic Con, and as we saw footage of people coming through, didn't look too busy. It looked pretty busy, but it wasn't super packed like a San Diego Comic Con or other cons, which I think honestly is a trend that we're seeing happening here. It seems like cons are just not being as a the attendance for cons hasn't been as large as it has in the past, which there's a lot of factors that I think can play into that, but it'll be interesting to see how conventions move going forward, if they're starting to lose some popularity with the fan bases, and how we might see some of these companies like Storm, like Jada, like all of these toy companies maybe start to preview some of their stuff if the conventions aren't like as big as they used to be. So here's the secondary Storm Arena display that we have here at the Hong Kong Comic Con, where we're seeing the Baki figures in the back, including the original Baki and Yujiro, as well as the brand new Hanayama. But those are cool to see there. But what we're really wanting to see is what they're showing here in the foreground is the first wave of the King of Fighters line, which is a wave that has been up for pre-order now for some time and was actually set to supposed to be releasing in Q1 and Q2 of this year. So you see Benimaru, Goro, and what's the other guy's name? Kyo. They're looking pretty good. I'm liking the sculpts. Of course, Storm does a great job with the sculpts and the paint. They're looking good. I believe this is the first time we're seeing Kyo back on display. He wasn't at their last convention. So looking pretty good. He's looking kind of beefy, looking kind of broad there. I wonder if it's just how they have him posed, but we'll have to see how these look when they're finally in hand. But as I said, these have been on pre-order for I would say like 6 to 8 months now. They should have been in hand started a few months ago. But the concerning thing that I wanted to point out here on this display, as you can see in their nameplates, each one of these is still being shown and listed as pending approval, which is something you usually don't see unless it's a prototype, it's earlier in the development phase, and usually you don't see pending approval unless like they haven't even gone out for pre-order or anything like that. So it is concerning that A, we've had these on pre-order for a while now, and B, they should have already been starting to ship and be released and in people's hands, and they have not even been approved yet from the licensor. Now, is there a chance these are like older plates that they just didn't update? I mean, maybe that's the case, but I would imagine that these would be updated if they were approved and were close to being in production and ready to ship. So it is really concerning, guys, because if these really are still pending approval, then that probably means that these haven't even gone into production yet. They might still be making tweaks, sending back to licensors, approving that whole process, which usually happens before figures usually even go out for pre-order. Definitely happens before they go into production. So again, these got pushed back to Q2, which there's a month left in Q2. So I think we might not even see these release even out of Hong Kong in Q2. These are probably going to be pushed into Q3. Maybe we can get some production, approval and production in Q3, which means if you've ordered these through a US retailer like Big Bad Toy Store, you're not seeing these in hand possibly until Q4. And I hate to say it, but if the approval process doesn't move along, if these really are still pending approval, we might not see these figures release until early 2027. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, see if they can get this fast tracked and approved and into production. But I think it's pretty safe to say if these nameplates are accurate and these figures are really still in the approval process, that these have not yet gone into production. So concerning if you're a King of Fighters fan, just concerning I think if you are a Storm Arena fan, because we're starting to see that they had a big hot streak their first year of development and releasing of figures. But 2026 and the first half of this year, we've seen lots of delays, lots of pushbacks of releases. We're still waiting on some pre-orders of different things. So it seems like there might be some, some wrenches in the gears of the Storm Arena machine, but hopefully we see that ironed out here and we can start to get some of these figures released in hand. But yeah, so that is the only other display for Storm Arena at the Hong Kong Comic-Con. They also do show off the Street Fighter 6 Bison from Storm Collectibles. But that's really all we see from Storm Arena here as they partnered with Anime Pro at the Hong Kong Comic-Con. Now let's go ahead and move on. There I was just showing again, I posted this to my YouTube community so you could clearly see the pending approval on these. I did want to look at the exclusives from Hong Kong Comic-Con that Storm Arena released, because at least we have some good news on these exclusives because they are looking really great. We have the Player 2 colorway of both Nash and Dan, and Mr. Lee finally gave us an in-hand look at these figures, and they're just looking good. That effect piece is looking really cool. Loving that Sonic Boom translucent yellow blue effect piece, really cool. Loving the colors on this Nash, that white and navy colorway. You can see he does some mix and match here with the Player 1 version, so really cool, as well as the Screaming head sculpt that is brand new. So some cool stuff with this Player 2, and again, I'm hoping that I get my order in and we get this figure here in the next couple of weeks. But this one is looking really good. And then we also got an in-hand look from Mr. Lee here for the Player 2 Dan that everyone has been talking about in the community. Some happy about this, some not so happy that these head sculpts are behind this Hong Kong release. But hey guys, just wait it out. If you can't get your hands on this, we should be getting other versions of the Player 2 where you can get your hands on these new head sculpts. But looking really good. Loving the orange. The purple is like a little bit of a lighter purple. It would have been cool to see that a little bit darker, but looking good. We were concerned about the skin tone. Is it going to be too dark to mix and match with your Player 1 version? But it's looking like it is the same color or close enough that you can do that mix and match no problem. So if you have the Player 1 version, you should be able to mix the head sculpts with the pink version to get the goofy faces that you're needing. And I believe he did, I thought it was shown in that video there. I know he did post a picture at some point showing that swap of the head. Maybe it's not here, but it did look like it worked pretty well. Now let's go ahead and jump into Jada Toys. It is coming to the end of May, and we are still looking for, we are still looking for the pre-orders from the Invincible line. We saw these looks and different in-hand posing, and just these figures look really awesome. This was at WonderCon earlier this year, where June said we should get pre-orders by the end of April. It is now the end of May, and we have not seen these released. Now, is it possible we get a email tomorrow, Saturday, that these will pre-order this coming Monday? Yes, that is possible, but that is the very end of May, and it's looking like it's probably likely that we don't see these guys go up for pre-order until June. So hopefully we don't see them any later than June as far as pre-orders go, because that puts us a little further behind than the April mark that June said they wanted to hit. And yes, I know a lot of people, when we talk about this stuff, will say, well, who cares? Be patient. They're coming. Or other people might But on my channel, I do get a lot of comments and questions about any updates on Invincible. Where's the Invincible figures? So I did want to bring it to our attention because even though a lot of people don't care about when these pre-orders do launch or when these figures end up releasing, as long as we get them sometime this year, just there really is a little bit of like a space race going on between competitive companies. And of course, we're talking about Jada and Storm Arena right now. So if you are like paying close attention, if you're collecting both lines, if you're looking at what people are talking about online, there's so much comparison between the two that to a lot of us, there is a little bit of a space race going on, like who can put out their figures, who can put out their figures on time, who can put out the best figures. So there is a little bit of a competitive aspect there that we are all looking at, especially if we're covering these figures on our channel, especially if you're a hardcore collector. So, these are things that we do think about and we talk about and we touch on because we do end up getting a lot of that stuff in our comments and in our replies asking about where certain things are. So I just did want to touch on this because, again, there is a little bit of a space race here as to who's getting what out and if they're getting stuff out on time. And right now, both Storm and Jada seem to be behind a little bit, and we're just going to have to kind of see how things start to play out as a lot of these figures, especially these highly anticipated figures like this Invincible line, end up releasing. But hopefully these are right around the corner. I'm super excited about the Jada Invincible stuff. It's looking really good and should hopefully be up for pre-order here soon. We'll have to wait and see. Now let's go ahead and jump over to 52 Toys, who is just now shipping out their Ryu and Ken from Street Fighter 6, and we saw early previews of their Guy and Sodom at a earlier convention this year, which were looking really cool. Now they were in grayscale form, but we are now finally seeing the pre-order and final looks of these figures. And I have to be honest and say I'm a bit disappointed in the way these look. I'm also a little bit disappointed in how the first Ryu and Chun-Li release is looking coming out of 52 Toys. They are just a little too small. Some of the details, like the skin color and some of the sculpt, is just a little lacking in my opinion. Like I would like to see them push that a little bit further, and this is going to be their second wave of releases from this Fig Light sort of fighting game action figure line, which again, these do look like they pose well. I think the strong point for 52 Toys is going to be their posability, but two highly anticipated characters, Guy and Sodom, which we did see in in their early concept prototype form. You can see that here. These were looking really cool. Like I'm loving this way this sculpt looks. You can see how large the chest and shoulders and the head and just everything on these early grayscale prototypes is looking so cool. You can see all of the different accessories that they were set to come with, including like the ham and turkey and burger and the bomb and all the accessories that you see in the Final Fight games. So, we are really excited about these. And unfortunately, now that we're seeing them in their sort of finalized form, they're just not quite stacking up to how good those prototypes were looking. Even this, I was most excited about the Sodom. Really cool character design. Storm has not given us this character yet in their alpha line. Jada is just starting their alpha line, so of course we haven't seen this figure come out of Jada yet. I know some companies back in the day have tackled the Sodom, but to see this version in this new form, I was really excited because this is just such a cool looking character, and this just is not quite hitting the mark. Like I don't know if it's the articulation cuts in the shoulders and the size of the arms. It's just changed quite a bit, I think, from this earlier prototype where he looked like big and hulking and just really great proportionally, where in the final versions it's just not quite there. It's looking a little weird. You can see him in his posing, not terrible looking. This Sodom is probably the best looking of the 52 Toys sort of Fig Light fighting game characters, but just still not quite there. I am enjoying that they're showing that he's over 6.5 inches tall, which is nice because the Ryu and Chun Li actually were looking much smaller, almost like SH Figuarts scale. So that was disappointing. So it's looking like these are a little bit bigger, but yeah, just the like cuts in the shoulders and the arms, and just something is looking a little off about this. And then the guy, I am just not a fan of these faceplates that they're using. I think they just look way too overly cartoony. I don't know if you guys can see that there, but it's just not looking like it'll fit in well with all of the other Street Fighter stuff that we've seen coming out. But we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Again, we none of us really have these in hand yet. This is the second wave, which hopefully improves on that first wave that we're seeing a lot of criticism about, but just not quite there yet for me. But still interesting to see these characters come out because Guy and Sodom are two fan favorites that people have been asking for. So at least they're providing something that people want. You can see here, Guy's about 6 inches tall, but just not quite there yet. Like, I'd see if I can zoom in, but those faceplates just not great. And then the pre-order exclusive for Sodom is an additional hand for a Guy so he can hold this katana, which just kind of weird all around. I hope 52 Toys can keep improving and start providing us some cooler looking figures in the future. It does look like they've improved here a little bit, but just not quite there yet. And then we're going to talk about the price as well. 5K Toys usually has a good price for these import figures. You can see here these guys are going for 45, so I would say about $50, $50 to $55 shipped once these finally hit 5K Toys. But if you jump over here to Big Bad Toy Store, they have these guys up for $70 shipped, which is just asking way too much, in my opinion, for this size and level of a figure. So these are sold out. It looks like the standard or substandard I see, so you can get mint still here. But yeah, so if you're getting I don't know. I look elsewhere because Big Bad Toy Store is taxing for these, and I think you might be disappointed if you end up paying like $70 for these figures. And even more so, their Captain Commando is $75 shipped, which cool looking figure, comes with more accessories than the other Final Fight characters, but man, $75 for this toy and just, not looking that impressive in the paint and detail. Kind of a hard pill to swallow, I think, if you are looking to pick up these characters to fill out your Marvel vs. Capcom and Marvel Alpha line. Like, kind of a kind of hard one to pick up at this price point, in my opinion. So we did see some additional concepts, early prototypes for Akuma and Kami, which were looking really cool in this grayscale format, but now seeing sort of how they've translated the articulation cuts and just the way they're engineering these characters, I'm a little concerned about how these will end up turning out in their final form. So we'll have to wait and see. But 52 Toys, just keep improving, and hopefully they will get to a place where you're getting you're getting the value for your money for what they're charging for these. But outside of 52 Toys, let's go ahead and look at some other stuff at 5K Toys, some third party. Here we're seeing the ex-Kokan, they call her the Cyberpunk Fighter Lee. This is the Player 2 version of the original Quinn Lee. We see her in her red suit, that alpha style suit. So that's really cool. We are getting a Player 2 of the highly popular Quinn Lee figure. So if you did not get a chance to get your hands on the original Quinn Lee, it looks like we are getting a player 2, which you can grab if you are interested in that. So that's hopefully going to look really cool. I don't imagine there will be any updates outside of the color. We'll just have to wait to see. But really cool that we are getting a player 2, and just kind of cool to know that Xcocan, if that's how you say the name, is going to be providing us different colorways for these characters, because they are also releasing a cami as well. So keep an eye out for those. And then we're going to go look over at the brand new Fist Toys. We're getting a in-hand look at the Jill Valentine, which they recently previewed, which I thought was honestly just like a CGI render, just because of how smooth and how good it looked. But seeing here, this is actually the toy itself. Like the detail in the face and the accessories, like look at the detail in the clothing and the soft goods. Phenomenal, honestly. Like it's not a CGI render. This thing is actually real, which is kind of blowing my mind. Now, I don't love that they're going with the soft silicone body, so it is like jointless, as you can see here. I don't love those style of figures. I wish they would have used regular joints like they did for the Street Fighter 6 Ken, but I do understand why. It's a smaller body, female, hate to say sort of gooner style figure, where these seamless silicone bodies are very popular. So hopefully that works out for them. But the articulation on this thing is looking really good too. Of course, this is the big bust version of this figure. You can see him squeeze there, which highly inappropriate, guys. Come on, let's do better. But as we did see, Fist Toys is also releasing a quote unquote small bust version, which will be more accurate to the Jill Valentine's original design. But just cool to see this. This is an awesome looking figure. The Fist Toys Ken came out to, I believe, like $80 to $85 shipped, which if this figure is in that price point, this is looking like it could be a great value for the $85 with all the accessories, the soft goods, the just detail. This is looking like a mini Hot Toys pretty much. So if we see this at the $80 price point, I'm probably going to have to jump in on this, but looking really good coming out of Fist Toys, so props to them. Hopefully we see them do more fighting game and Street Fighter stuff. Would love to see that, but yeah, looking really cool. But yeah, that pretty much covers it for today, guys. I know that was a lot. We covered a lot here today, and as I've said before, like this is supposed to be a bi-weekly show. That was the initial idea behind the show, every other week. But we've been getting so much news and so much in the fighting game world as far as toys go that we're here weekly for the first 3 episodes. So I would say don't expect the show every week, but right now it seems like that's the rhythm that we are moving at. If you like this kind of content, guys, please drop a like on this video. That helps a ton, especially with this type of show where it might not be pushed out to everyone that is interested in this kind of content unless we get some engagement like likes and comments. So it's highly appreciated if you drop a like if you enjoyed this video and this type of content. Let me know down in the comments below how you're feeling about all of these toys. Are you fed up with waiting for pre-orders and things to drop? Are you looking to pick up some of this third-party stuff? Let me know down in the comments. It's highly appreciated. And if you are not subscribed yet, feel free to subscribe, as we are covering all things fighting game 1/12 action figure related in this sort of live uncut format, as well as deeper dives and reviews in our original format of video. So you can go back if you're new to the channel and check out all that stuff. But it's been great hanging out with you guys. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and we will see you in the next one.